Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. And as usual, with me on this show is my colleague.
Hello, everyone again. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome to part 2.
Yes, this is part 2. And you all may be wondering, those of you who saw part 1 saying, how come they're in the same clothes? Is it the same show? No, it was we were so excited, so much information when we spoke to Andrew Nunez that we felt, you know what, we need to continue on time. Mm-hmm. So we continue the interview, very well aware that this will be part 2. So that's why we are in the same clothes. This part 2, would be extremely exciting because we spoke a lot about the roofing, that aspect of it in terms of your property, maintaining your property. And we thought, let's move on because we had so many other areas to discuss. So for this show, we will be continuing that discussion. So here we go again.
Dala Sabi. We're talking about the structure of the roof and so on. And could we talk about us being in the tropics in the hurricane season? What are the things, not the hurricane season, with the hurricane belt? You fix the roof in the dry season for the hurricane season. Given the different types of roofs that we have, galvanized, shingles, concrete, and the framing, the things that support the roof, what are some of the things that we now as 5.8G in the maintenance phase of a house need to be concerned about to make sure that we don't lose the roof over our heads during a tropical disturbance?
Right, and that's the last element I just spoke about there. Yeah. What is your connection of your frame to the house? Because most roofs leave homes. You see, it's very little we could do to prevent your finish from leaving the house. Because the finish is an element, right? So, yeah. But what you don't, because you remember you could always get some sheeting and put back on. What you don't want to leave, or tarpaulin. But what you don't want to leave, the element that you don't want to leave the house, that you don't want to actually depart from the house, is your frame. But most times you look at houses, you'll see the frame, the roof pulls up and it rips the frame, everything up and everything gone.
Yeah.
Right? So the frame of the house and your connection of your frame to your house is the most important element in dealing with hurricane. Without that, a hurricane comes and rips everything off.
A storm.
All you will see,
a storm, not a hurricane.
A storm. All you will see, and we have seen it, we have seen places, all you're seeing is just the walls standing up. Where's the frame of the house? You will see the frame wherever the sheeting is. Sometimes you see the frame down the road there too as well. Only because that connection detail of the frame, of where the frame connects onto the house is not done to deal with the systems that we encounter down on this part of the islands. And most homes that resist hurricanes and storms, you would look at them, even though part of the roof goes, you will see the frame intact. Frame have gone anyway. The sheeting would have gone. Even there's what you call like a little surface. Sometimes some of those might have gone, but the actual main core of the frame is good. So all that person have to do when that situation passed primarily is to look at, I know how to get back some sheeting out of the sheet my roof, but my frame with the most expensive exercise most expensive part of the roof is intact, which is your frame.
So how do you
that,
maintain a frame?
right, so
How do you
do
make sure your frame is good?
Right. So what you have
connection.
now, you have steel and you have lumber. Well, steel, there's a particular connection detail for steel that allows your roof to stay intact. And that detail is connected to what we call your ridge beam or your tie beam of your house. Sorry, your tie beam or your of the house. So what happens, or in some cases, alternatively we call wall plates and that. So that part of that ring beam or perimeter beam, you have to have that as an element, as the last element on the what do you call the concrete section of your house, because that is the part that they want to keep, that has to keep the roof down. Yeah. Your detailed connection, how you do your detailed connection from your rafters onto that piece of concrete and the connection of bolts and stuff on it, that is what is you have to pay attention to. And those are specific details that is done to treat with that connection. Now, let me tell you, I'll give you a quick example. Some people you find will have that ring beam or perimeter beam, and when they're using steel, normally some people you see they'll drop the steel in it and then they take a hook, if you want to like a bar, and bend it across and connect it. That is a simplistic way, but that is not really the most effective way. That steel, that rafter supposed to have what they call a little stub column welded on it, and that stub column supposed to have a plate that rests on top your ring beam and bolted onto the ring beam. That is what they call a proper connection detail that keeps the rafter, and that's your main part of your frame, because the main part of your house is your rafters. And that is what keeps that in position. You have your purlins on top of that, which is bolted onto the rafter. Wind come, takes up the sheeting, God forbid the sheeting gone, that frame, that detail of that frame we talked about just now, your purlins attached to that, the purlin will remain the same location, the rafters will be the same location, even though part of the sheeting goes.
And if you retrofit these things, can you retrofit your house, your roof with those things?
Yeah, absolutely. No, the only thing about it is that if you don't have that as a standard detailer for your house, it is a costly exercise to put it in place afterwards.
But that is very important. Replacing the roof.
Yeah, exactly. But you really want to ensure that is done, or something like that is done, to ensure that the forces of the wind, or the wind force that comes that actually rips and pull, because you remember most of that wind, when it rips it pulls it from your eave, because it pulls from underneath there and goes up. So it actually, that your eave is what actually causes some of that force to go up right and pull. But actually, once it does that, it actually rips the sheeting off. If the frame is not solid, it pulls that off. So that's it.
Andrew, how would it, okay, so let's say I'm living in a very old house, a house that built probably 50 years ago, etc. How would I know if that structure, because when you look up, to me, you wouldn't know, just so with a normal eye, I wouldn't know whether that roof has that type of ring, is ridge beam or ring beam? I used to say
ring beam, yes.
Right. How would you know that? How would someone know that? So if I have to ensure that my roof won't blow off.
There is no, the only way you will find that out is if you have, for instance, if you consider that eave ceiling, or ceiling on the eave, and you remove that, because the only way you could know that is by examining the or taking up something to be able to identify, to see what it is holding down your frame of your.
Okay, so you could shift the ceiling, remove this, well, let's say part, you have those ceilings where you move the tile type of ceiling. You remove a couple tiles to the wood.
Yeah, and then you could, then you would see what it is that the actual frame is resting on,
Andrew,
and that will tell you if it's block.
Why we saying you move the tile? Who is the you that should move the tile and do this inspection?
No. You have to actually get some. You have to get somebody in the field to be able to move your tile off, to be able to look at it.
That's my cousin John come down the road.
You have to get a specialist. Now you have to get a specialist. I see somebody.
It has to be a specialist.
But
well, and you want to get a specialist, because when you remove certain things, you want to put, if it is there, you want to make sure a person is capable enough to put it back properly.
Or to identify what is wrong.
If you don't have that, then if I myself trying to do that, I will next time I bend the frame, I can't fix back the frame properly, I don't know how to hook it back in properly. So all those things, and then sometimes you don't have the equipment to be able to screw and fit these things back in properly where they're supposed to. So a person in construction, a person in construction to look at that, to be able to examine that. A small contractor, somebody to look at that for you.
Okay. So a proper contractor who has knowledge of these things, because it's good your cousin John down the road doing some construction, he might not he might know about masonry.
Yeah.
But
exactly. But he don't know. I always tell people, get somebody who is a specialist in those areas to look at your, even if we in this business and we do that ourselves, if I wouldn't go and call anybody to come and check something like that for me at all. No, I want to call, if I know a particular contractor, I know this guy will call him and say, give him a call and say, look, I need for you to look at XYZ for me, because I know he can handle that, or he himself will just call his personnel, who's his specialist, and say, can we go in, let's go here and let's examine this rope. We want to see XYZ, and you explain it to him, and he treated it accordingly. But no, you don't want to have anybody do it. I agree with you, Kara.
All right. Andrew, my last question concerning the roof. Recently, I did some renovations to my house, and we had to look at the electrical. And I know we will talk further on electrical in our next part 2. And the guy was looking for which part, how he enter onto the roof through the ceiling. And there is what you call it. I don't want to say a manhole. When the hole in the roof is called what? When you enter to go up to the roof.
From the ceiling.
Yes.
He was going up into the roof to check the electricals. And he was telling me it was very difficult for him to go through. And I was asking, is that the manhole you call it? That you enter to go on to from the right.
So a service hatch.
What you call it?
A service hatch.
Or a service hatch. Great, that's correct too. Thanks. But he was suggesting, which I did, and I am bringing this up because I find is a very important aspect. He suggested that I do 2 and change the type I had, because they had these ready-made ones that very easy, like a huge tile that just fit in and very easy to remove. And there was a different sizes. So if your service person happened to be very big, if my service person was a very big person, would not have been able to go through that small service space. So I'm just sharing this for others who, when they're doing their renovations, that is something I would have never thought about if the service, if the electrician didn't point that out to me and suggested I do too. So it all depends on which part of the house you want to get into. You have that. So I'm just bringing that up. I don't know what is your take on it.
Yes, well, the sizes that you'll have to use is to get a person properly is a 48 by 48, which is a 4 foot square. That is the best size to put.
Yeah. And would you, if you have 2 apartments, you might need to have 2, 1 in each apartment.
Each apartment, yes, for each apartment.
Okay. Andrew, how often should people be going up in that service hatch to see what is going on? Because your electricals will be on the ceiling up there.
Yeah, well, no, you don't need to go up often, that very often, because remember is that once you have stuff up inside, nothing really goes wrong with the electrical up there. Once you have proper electrical and you use the proper wiring and stuff like that, and the grade based on TNTech and the inspectorate standards that's normally used, you shouldn't have a problem. So sometimes people is years, sometimes 4 years, 5 years, sometimes people once to go up there.
Only when you need someone.
Only when you need something or there's an issue up there that you want to do something that you go up there. But normally you don't go up unless you want to just go and examine what the situation is up inside you. But it's not something that you go up regular at all.
I want to get straight into the electrical aspect.
That is superstructure part 2.
Yes. And recently there, again, you know, a friend and I chatting, and she was telling me, oh, you know, the kitchen alley caught a fire. And I said, what happened? And she said, well, actually, she also just did a little apartment on the side and had tenants. And the new tenants, of course, brought in, and you mentioned it in our earlier segment about looking at all the extra electrical aspects, that all electrical equipment, etc., that you brought in. And she got a call telling her that sparks were coming out, you know, when they plugged in something, etc. So she called in the electrician, and the electrician said she had to redo electricals because now you have 2 washing machines working, 2 dryers on either side.
AC.
Using the same, what is it, the box?
Yes.
Air fryer, microwave, electric
That
stove.
one box, right? And it happened to be that tenant, the man is very much involved with electronics, you know?
Yes.
And had to do over this entire thing. And of course, the problem was the cost, because as a retiree looking to rent a house to bring in income, and now faced with the rent, the 2 months rent could not cover that cost. What would you suggest in terms of preventing something like that happening?
All right. Well, the first thing that you need to look at, even before one does your design, because whether you do it manually or whether you yourself prepare a design, you have to look at your function, because once you're going to change the function of your home from one to a single family to one of a multiple family, that is where the change, that's a big change. Because remember, before it was a single family residence.
Yes.
The fact that you put in an next apartment is a multiple family residence. So a multiple family residence, the first thing from an electrical standpoint you have to look at, outside of the other agencies that they might have to treat with, the main thing really is to look at, is my point of entry, the size of the cable that coming in to my home as it is, right? Is that the proper size of cable? Is that the proper size cable to deal with the extension and my chance changing over from a single family to a multiple family? Because now you have more power, and that is your first port of call. You have to look at what does that represent in terms of power coming in, and whether that existing cable, size cable that you have is large enough to bring in the amount of power that you need to supply yourself now and plus another family present. That's your first port of call.
Before you go further, then do you have to inform TNTech? Is that necessary?
By extension, it is necessary, because only TNTech is TNTech and what they call an electrical inspectorate. There's two people. You have TNTech and you have electrical inspectorate is one who approves that. TNTech just come to do your connection. But when you have properties and you're going to upgrade, you have to get approval from the electrical inspector. That is a separate entity from TNTech. They have nothing to do with TNTech.
Oh,
most people think when they say electrical inspector,
so you can't just.
Inspector is not part of TNTech.
Oh, well, you can't just call the electrician to change that box, to put an extra, what do you call it?
Extra box.
Panel.
An extra panel.
Yes. No, and the reason for that is primary. I'll tell you why. When you're looking at especially electrical, safety is first. Safety is first. So you want to make sure that whatever you plan to do, you have to make sure that the governing agency approve of that.
Okay.
And the governing agency, so you have to tell them in terms of your presentation, whoever it is doing it, will have to show that the power that I'm going to use for extension of XYZ, blah, 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 the present cable that TNTech has come into my single family residence. And because I'm going to put on a next year, I don't know how much things the people coming in with. The other sometimes you cater for XYZ, but a family coming, they come in many other things besides what it is you think you care for. So that person who handle your electrical works have to tell you, look, we'll have to get inspection for these mains first. Because what you're going to do, you're going to add things, you have to change main from this size cable to that cable. We have to change it, we have to get that inspected first, and then TNT come and do the connection afterwards.
I can give you a story, a recent story about
Andrew talking in my mind, I said, I wonder how many people do that.
No, but I can give you a story. And it is a personal story, and Andrew,
yes.
We are fortunate to have the same person who built the house, the electrician, do it. And about a couple of years ago, we did some renovations. The renovations was simply put in what I considered a shed. Well, it's not a shed, a little storeroom outside the house. And of course, there's a bathroom there, and it needed to be electrified. So we call our good Jerry, I'm calling your name. And Jerry came in, he looked at it, he looked at me, he said, of course, I'm going back with my floor slab issue because the roof is a floor slab. He said, Mr. I know you know, and you're always calling me, remember the breaker always tripping in the house. And I tell you already that when you have the oven on, the microwave on, the toaster oven on, the air fryer on, and you're running the blender, you strip the kitchen. So my kitchen is an electrical hazard, and he point blank refused to run a piece of wire from the house to the thing for me to get a light. And he insisted that the cable, the power coming in, and he said, we have to invest in, what's the big thick black cable called? If you see big thick black cable, he ran and put another box. He said, you are building, that potentially is another house. And I would be reckless if I allowed you to use your current electricity over there. One set of long black cable. And I'm looking at him and saying, but you don't care about my budget. He said, you're going to burn down your house. That happened to us last year.
Well, and I was just giving Jennifer just now that you have to look at it from that angle.
He told me you're going to burn down your house.
Yeah, but you have, I think what that says also, Andrew, and for our audience, that it is also advisable to use a licensed electrician. Yeah, just as how when you spoke about roof, and you should really use an expert for the roofing expert. For electrical, really, it should be a licensed electrician, because that could really cost us our home, our investments in the end.
My electrician, he said, I am not doing it. You have to run trunking cable. And it came from the main panel, dig up one set of trench and all kind to turn on a light bulb. But the fact of the matter is it speaks to, I had already overloaded the kitchen just with normal appliances that are all being used with extension cord and all kind of thing like that. So Andrew, that's another thing that we do with our electricals. So a lot of us do things that could have us at risk of burning down our houses with electrical fires.
No, you don't. One of the things that you don't really want to take lightly is the areas of electrical in your house. Don't take that lightly at all. For absolutely no reason you're supposed to take that lightly, because that's actually basically playing with your life there once you take that lightly. It's not something to play with lightly at all. And that's why the importance of dealing with it in a professional manner is absolutely critical, and that's why you need to attend to it. But your first port of call is you look at your entry and you get just a sense as to whether or not that has to change. Everything else could take place after that, but you must look at that as your first port of entry, because I can say you're changing the function of your home from a single family resident to a multiple family resident, and that is a big changeover. And you have to treat with that changeover as if you're going to build, like if it's a townhouse. If 2 townhouses are the side or 2 units are the side, and you have to treat it like that. You know how to move away from the single family mindset to a multi-family, right? Because the same amount of units that you have in your home, the person coming there most likely may have that plus about half of that added to it.
And
And
let
they
me
all
go a
look
little
at us.
further
Let
on
us an
that.
apartment at the side.
Let me go
They
a
all
little
look at us.
further on that. So that is for those of us who are looking to add an apartment onto the homes. But you also have this situation, and we're looking at us now at this stage in our lives and with what is happening out there, where we have children coming back home in that same under one roof. So you have the children coming back home, and they may not bring an extra stove or an extra fridge, but in terms of all the different gadgets that they use, I think that also, when that happens, it is also important to call in an electrician so they will be aware of what are the extra being used. Because, for instance, an older person who may not be using a lot of electronics, whereas the younger ones would.
A TV in every room, a TV
and that's all
and a computer in every room.
Yeah. So you're quite correct, Ariane. If you have 4 persons coming in, all of them coming in for sure with their computer and other electronics. So so we should also look at that. And in that situation, have the electrician come in to check what are the extras going to be used, and decide whether then you need to
even Jennifer, even if you're not going to, even if you don't have anybody coming in, but if you as the individual homeowner decide, look, the kind of heat I dealing with these days,
oh gosh, yes.
We
add in air condition. I'm telling you.
You had probably just the bedroom alone, and you say, something, I'll be baking in this kitchen. You drop a next unit, you say, here, I need a unit to be able to supply the kitchen, the living room for me, the dining room for me. No, that's a big area. And it's okay, right? We need extra. So when you're doing those types of increases in terms of your energy increase in terms of your consumption, you now have to be able to look and say, something, I probably need to look at what even this cable that are coming in is adequate to deal with that, as well as even if it is, how would I deal with my panels? Whether I'm going to put some sub panels instead of putting everything in that panel, have to be increase the size of my breakers and blah, blah, blah. So that all these upgrades now you have to look at, but you must get a licensed person to come and do an assessment based on what it is you plan to do. Even before you put it, you could communicate a licensed plan and say, look, I intend to put a unit to supply the kitchen, the living room, dining room. Guy might say, okay, right, well, you might be talking about the extra amount of BTU, and that is the kind of power you pull in what you have right now. So you do what they call a load assessment. So you associate a load analysis, and that will give you whether or not the cable you have coming in needs to change as well to come to take care of. And this is outside of anybody else coming in to add any additional things. Just you yourself adding in it yourself would require something like that to be considered as and have a kind of load analysis done, and to get a sense as to where, from your main cable coming in and how you're going to do your distribution now from your if you're going to have to put some additional splitter boxes as opposed to just unit from the one panel, and if you're using the one panel, how much space you have to put in additional breakers, and whether you have to increase the size of your breakers, but things like that. So a really proper analysis has to be done, and electricians have all the expertise and the know-how to be able to deal with
to guide us on that. Great.
Yes. Yeah.
One other question, Andrew. I'm just asking this though. Maybe it's a question, maybe for the electrician. But is there a guideline? Sometimes I'm very concerned. You hear sometimes you should unplug, don't leave the dryer plugged in, or don't leave certain equipment plugged in, because if you leave it plugged in, it pulls more electricity, etc., etc. Is there a guideline on that sort of usage?
Yeah, TNTech has standard guidelines, that issue. And if you're going to see a TNTech the web page, as the case may be, you could actually download some of those information. And those are guidelines, safety guidelines that TNTech have.
Safety guidelines. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking this it's only because we are chatting now and I recognize how important it is, you know, to have put things in place that I thought of that, because I keep certain things plugged in and I always wondered if I should keep it plugged in or not. So yeah, I will check the website and maybe put it as a reference to our audience who would be interested in going in and checking on it.
You check the health and safety section and you will get most of those information there.
Okay.
All right, so the electrical seems to be, you have to get your electrician to come in and do an assessment, especially of our gadgets and our security systems, which sometimes have a whole panel itself, the cameras.
Yes.
I forgot that. That's so true.
That is the other part. Andrew, the other part of the superstructure that I've had some experience with that recently because we don't consider it. It is the plumbing system, that septic and sewer tank that we don't look at for years upon years upon years. What should we be concerned about with the plumbing systems in our homes?
The most important thing is you should have a drawing. Go wrong with your plumber, he's not always, you leave the country, he's aware. But you need to get something done because everything plumbing is not always visible for the eye to see, as you know. But if you have a drawing, the drawings give you an idea where lines are, where you might have valves connected, where the valves, which line is connected to what. Similar to the electrical, but more in the plumbing area, you will find that will be considered necessary. The reason why sometimes it's good for electrical too is because it also tells you where certain things are connected or which breakers certain things are connected to. Even sometimes when it's, you don't see them on the panel board, on the panel door itself of that particular panel. But plumbing in particular, because a number of times people come in to deal with plumbing and they do not know where certain things are, where this line connected to, which part this line comes from, what is above ground, what is underground. So a number of things sometimes go wrong. So if you have that drawing of your existing, every time you do an extension or you do addition to it, then you could always have somebody a qualified, and again a licensed plumber too as well.
It has no drawing.
Well. You yourself.
It have no drawing.
You don't have any information. So when a person comes, it's basically the operator on a quote unquote guest basis. So you really relying on the experience, depending on the nature of the problem, because some things are very easy, simple, and they could trace it very easy. But there may be an area of concern or some problem might pop up where it is a more difficult to trace. But if you have a drawing, it allows that person to view it and say, okay, it looked like the problem on this line might be in this location, might be under the slab. It looked like you would have connected this line going out, running under the driveway. So even if you have to do some physical work to disrupt your external areas, at least you know where to start to do the work to disrupt the disruption. In the absence of that, it becomes sometimes very challenging for people to troubleshoot. Now, there are companies that do what we call troubleshooting. They have equipment that trace these things too as well. So there are companies, and that's how sophisticated we have come in terms of this particular mechanical service that we evolve, which is plumbing. And they can do the tracing and they could find it out as well. But sometimes with the drawing, it is done, you have it even faster.
But Andrew, is there something that we can do? And I say this because recently, again, in my parents' home, which is a 46, nearly 50-year-old house, there was a major seize up of a line which had not been cleared for the life of the house. And in this 2022, the house was built in 1976. Mr. Line decided, well, I've had enough of you all. And it was very expensive.
Right. And that would be that. So you have two parts. You remember plumbing has two, You have the supply and you have the waste.
Yeah.
The supply line, the supply line is the one that brings in the water from the water. Your waste is what goes out or what you use and going out. Sometimes if you don't have, again, this is why a drawing is so important, because it can also tell you where cleanouts are. Because some cleanouts you can see, some cleanouts you cannot see.
Yeah.
In some cases, depending on the age of the house too as well, things may have been added to it and you have added quote unquote, you added elbows, added disconnected, added that connected. So if you don't know where they are, sometimes it's difficult to even find the clean out to be able to call it what these plumbers have to call like a rod that they could. There's a rod that could go along this, but you have to first find the clean out to be able to run it. Because sometimes, like you say, where the choke is, if you don't find a clean out, you have to, it's difficult to get, you have to actually go search, cut that pipe, put in a clean out, and then cut it, run it out. Then when you do it, you have to put it, but that's an expensive exercise.
But is there other things, you know, they say you could pour things into your toilet to help clean the line. Is that an advised maintenance?
I must confess, that is something that I have never used, because I don't always feel that effective, because anytime I have a situation like that, I look first to begin where the clean out is, and I will go and take, well, the thing about it is always from a handy standpoint to buy one or two tools that you yourself could use to help even temporarily a situation that develop. For instance, you must have a tool that could be able to open a clean out, because the clean out and things, some of these things are fairly large, but there are tools which could expand and hold on to it, and you turn just like a pliers and stuff like that, right? Yeah. But these are ones that are specialized ones to hold bigger openings, big wider spaces. So it's important to get one or two of those tools just as a household piece of equipment, and it helps you to deal with some of these issues. Even if they do, like I said, temporary, and sometimes to save your money, because sometimes it is as simple as opening the clean out and taking a piece of metal or water and run it down and clean the open wherever the joint is sometimes. And that is as simple as it could be something. But in the absence of that, you will have to call up plumber, to pay about $300 to come and do that. Yeah, then of course, depending on the rod, if you have to use the rod, might charge a little. So it could be a cost. So, but if it becomes now, if it is you do all of that and you still have the issue, well, then you know you need to call the plumber. But at least there's some measure of relief if it is that you can treat with it yourself on a simple do-it-yourself basis.
Yeah. And from what I'm hearing also, for those with the very old homes that don't have that plan for the plumber to follow, when that plumber comes and do find where the waste is or wherever, whatever the problem is, can they then put a marker or something that if it happens again, that it will be easily found?
Yes, you can do that, yes, because in some cases, if for instance, because some people they have problems with the supply, because you no longer have your supply and you have your valve where where water comes in, and I talk about the supply side now.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have it, so you can actually, in some cases, it is covered up, you don't see it. But if you don't have plumber find it now, if you don't put a marker again, after time, grass go, whatever it is, and
yeah,
you
still
can't find it, you don't know the exact location, dig all around. So yes, in a case like that, you could put a marker. It might have a wall close by. You could put a red mark on the wall so that you know it's within this vicinity. An inch and a half from here, 2 inches from here. Put
we
two
have
markers.
We have a piece of pipe sticking out that shows that.
Yeah, you could do that, and but every time you still have to check that, because people up and down kick out your pipe and that gone next year, you come back to square one. So,
yeah, so you just be you're aware of
every so often you have to make sure you're aware of it and keep it in visible at all times. Yes.
Yeah. And Andrew, the most obvious, the most critical, and sometimes you don't even think of maintaining water tanks. Water tanks. Because some people will go with water tanks and not service or clean those water tanks for years.
Yeah, that's that. And that in itself is a problem.
And the water comes out the bottom. The water doesn't come out the top.
Because you know, water comes in and brings in sediments. There are things that water bring in. We don't see it. It's not something always visible by the eye, but in a water tank, it settles to the bottom, right? It settles to the bottom, and you'll find after a time all these sediments there. And in some cases, that bad, you'll see it coming out brown and stuff like that, because you'll start to actually physically see it. But even before you physically see it, it is coming out. You drinking it and whatever have you, or you're cooking in it, as the case may be. So it is important to as well to also develop a filtration system that traps it before it gets in the tank.
Yeah.
So you have a filter, if you can get a
Before
filter.
it gets in the tank, not before it reaches the house.
No, before it gets in the tank, you can put a filter.
You set it up from on the outside.
Yeah, that filters the water before it gets to the tank.
Yes, yes.
And sometimes people put it both. They'll put a filter before and they'll put a filter after.
When it gets on the tank, yeah.
Right. All you have to remember is to clean that filter regular and change the filter regular. Because the filter itself is not an everlasting thing, yeah, but it has a certain life. And wherever you buy it from, you get the life of it. And you know, every time you unscrew it, you take out the filter, you put in a new one, you screw it back in.
Andrew, how long on average your filter supposed to last?
I don't have like a detail on it, but I just from my own personal experience, I normally change, I would change a filter probably within about 6 months. So I will change a filter 6 months, sometime a year ago, and I'll change a filter after a year.
And you and Terry, and thanks for reminding me, because I have to put in a new filter, and I have to get my tank clean.
I do it regular.
And I'm talking to those like me who are retired and checking every penny, and every time I check it,
plumbers might give you a different lifespan depending on the type of filter, because the type of filter too as well, that might have different lifespan. So wherever you're buying the filter from, whoever you buy it from, make sure you buy it from a reputable plumbing supplier that you can ask these questions. Say, look, how long is this filter supposed to last?
I had one, but I had it just so many years, Andrew, without attending to it. Let me put it that way. I need a prime. I'm telling you, it's no joke. I had to throw it out to replace it. So thanks for reminding me. It's important. I have to put a note now.
Lord, Andrew, this is you're stressing me out with my AC. I'm not servicing the AC frequently now. I think we're okay with the roof. I think we fixed the electrical. But definitely I have to do work on the plumbing and the
You know, one other question, and it's plumbing, but you are going into drainage. You know, proper drainage. So Andrew, in relation to the plumbing, the other aspect I'd like you to touch on is the drainage. And I'm talking about drainage in the home. You're running off of the water. And let me use, you know, in my situation, I find this, like I actually called in the plumber to check it. To put, and we say in a drain alongside, but it's something very shallow to get the water to run off from the house, because I have a thing that it's settling. You understand?
From the roof or from the plumbing in the house?
It's really not from the roof, you know, although the roof has around the roof has the normal, what you call it?
The skirting.
The guttering.
Yes.
But I find water settling at a certain spot, and I wanted it, you know, run off. But
right.
That might be something minor, but let me tell you what my concern is. My concern is with that settling, if it would erode the actual
substructure. Yes, substructure.
You know, you might look at it and say, that may be nothing, but that was my concern. So I'm just asking you whether we should also look at our drainage, you know, within the home, the outside,
right?
The external.
Right. So what we've been talking about all along really has been the actual structure of the house. The roof. We talk about the services, but you have that. This now falls in what we call the external works here.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So external works is pavings, drainage, boundary walls, fencing, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. But the importance of that really falls within, and sometimes even when we do renovation homes, you have your surface drains, right, which is the drains around the house that we call your sometimes 12 inches wide, 10 inches
Okay,
wide.
so that's what
surface
I'm
drain.
talking about, the surface drain, right?
Surface
Yeah,
drain,
okay.
right. Your surface drain, there is a connection between your surface drain around the house and how it gets out to your external drainage out in the road to get out
Right,
and
yes.
move on to your property, right?
That is what I'm
Now,
talking
in a quote unquote proper design, you should really have, in some cases, two sets of drainage. You should have a surface drain to treat with the one that comes from the roof. But you should also have a drainage to see to deal with the surface of the surface water, which is the water that actually falls outside of the outside of your roof.
Okay.
Right? Right. And sometimes what we have, sometimes you can, in some cases, you can try to combine the two, because what you can do in some cases, or people would have done, is that they would have put some fill from your boundary wall high, so it's high there and it slopes back to your drainage. So when water falls or rain falls,
Runs off.
it flows down, it has a slight grade and comes back into your drainer that is around the house, which is called the drainer, picks up the water from the house. Now, when you don't have that, you would get the ponding in different areas, because the land itself might be fairly level and some areas drop. So what in some designs you have drainage now, which is along the boundary side, to deal with the external water. That is the water that normally gathers on the outskirts of the thing, outside of your surface drain, right? So your normal surface drain around your house, that is one thing, and then you have one to deal with your surface water that falls on the outside as well. If you don't do that, then you try to make sure you have a slope from your from the wall on the outside, and so it's higher. The soil there is built up a little higher, and let it slope back towards the house to take care of your surface drain, right? If you don't have that, might be building up areas and having getting fill, what you call important fill, that is fill that you bring in for your property around the house. Make sure you spread it.
Grade it down, to have it graded.
Yeah, you need it higher on the wall, and you might want to come back into the only drain that you have. Or if you don't have that, you can also you could do the opposite, have it lower by the wall and put a drainage, now what we call a boundary drain, put a drain on the outskirts to take it out and go out to the road.
Okay.
Right.
So drainage.
But generally speaking, you want to, that will fall under external works.
Lord have mercy.
And that could lead into the cracking of the wall too, because sometimes your fence wall, you see some cracks in it.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that it depends on how bad the situation is. The settlement of water, eventually at some point in time, you could find some of those issues popping up. Huh?
Okay.
And
if it is gathering along
substructure.
Yeah, if it's gathering along a fence wall, sometimes by the amount, sometimes the volume itself over a period of time, especially when the soil is saturated, remains there for a longer period of time, and you could find little compromise of your boundary wall and stuff like that starting to set in.
A bit. Yeah.
That's primarily because the water stays there for a pretty long period of time.
Yeah. You know what's a good thing about this discussion, people? We may talk about the maintenance of property that you own, but Andrew, you are giving so many great areas that you can talk to your landlord about maintaining the house so that it is fit.
Absolutely.
Yes, for your safety also, huh?
It is critical.
Yes.
So Andrew,
yes. So
the last system we want to get into now, I mean, we dealt with the roof, we dealt with the electricals, not going to burn down the house. We dealt with your plumbing systems, both the drainage and the sewage part of it, intake and outtake. We looked at drainage and so on. And now we have to deal with the masonry, your walls. Your walls. Walls need to be maintained also. And painting is not just a ritual.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that, when you talk about walls, people really refer sometimes to two things really. You'll have people seeing the cracks and things on the walls, and that sometimes will appear based on this settlement cracks. You'll get that too as well in case of some of the little earthquakes that you have. You'll get little movements, and you could have those things popping up too as well. And then, of course, your wall finish itself, which is that the level of plaster and the type of plaster that you use on it. And then, of course, in addition to that, your wall finish, final finish, which is your painting, right? But painting, and we could talk about painting because people say, well, you know, how often it's supposed to maintain your wall surface. Let me put it this way. All of us could paint, and I think I could take out a brush and I paint. I tell myself I'm a painter. You could do the same thing, and we all could paint. The problem is, how do you paint and how do you prepare what? Because 80% of a good paint job falls within the preparation of the wall, not the painting. And this is what a lot of people don't understand, is how you prepare the wall. It's 80% of the people.
When you work out that you have to prime before and paint, you normally
yeah, and preparation of a wall.
Instead of priming, say let the wall paint already, just repaint it now.
No, it's not priming, it's preparing the wall.
So even before you come to priming, you also have to be able to rub the wall down, because that is part of preparation of a wall. Preparation of a wall is being able to rub the surface down, bring it to a state for it to be ready to receive the primer. and see the part before you use the primer, that is the preparation I'm talking about. How well do you prepare a wall, whether the wall is you're going to repaint or whether it's a new wall, it still needs proper preparation. And your paint job, your quality of paint job is dependent on how good you prepare the wall before you start the painting itself. So 80% of a good paint job is the preparation of the wall. 20% is actually the painting. Where people think is the opposite.
Exactly. I agree with you, Andrew. And again, we are guided by cost and how much money it is, for paint, etc. But when a bad job is done, the most expensive paint on that wall will flake off.
Exactly.
And I had that experience. And I knew then that painter did not do a good job, because the paint was a fairly expensive paint that you think, well, okay, it would last. But within no time, you saw it flaking. And when I called in somebody else and they looked, and they did say the wall wasn't prepared. The paint was just, and it could have been my fault saying, well, just paint. The paint was above, just onto the last set of paint. You understand?
In fact, I will tell you something. Depending on where you live, for instance, if you live in the valleys, where there's a higher moisture content,
yes,
your preparation of your wall at certain heights is different. 4 feet from the ground, 4 feet from the ground. If you're painting a house, about 4 feet from the ground, you have to put a particular material there. Above that, you could continue with whatever you need to continue with. But 4 feet from the ground along those walls, from your wall surface, there's certain material that they say, certain types of preparation you put, a certain type of material you have to put on that wall. And also it has a certain primer that you would use to as well at that level. And then you use a different types above that level. Only to deal with things like moisture. But those are, and that is what they call understanding how you need to prepare a wall, where the wall is located, inside, outside, what is have on it already, what it doesn't have on it already, how you treat it. And what type of paint you use to as well, because there are different types of paint to deal with different types of surface.
And the painter, because some painters will tell you, look, all that unnecessary, you know.
Just paint.
But definitely where you live, I mean, that is a fact with that moisture.
Yeah. Big factor.
And Andrew,
so all of those things are factors, yes.
Let me ask you a fundamental question. Why is it necessary to paint walls properly?
The reason is that yes, your wall surface really represents, the other measure is how it looks to as well. So you have a visual expression in terms of how a wall actually, really, when you have a wall that is prepared and paint good, it makes a difference in terms of the finish, because you could do all your design that you need to have. You could have a nice design house, and the wall preparation paint is not good. Yes, the house don't look really good at the point in time. You will see issues that will pop up in a short space of time that will make the house look very, for want of a better word, kind of on the ugly side.
Lose
So
value.
so this is why it's important. Even in terms of rooms, you look at a room, you'll go in a room sometimes and you look at the inside of a room and you say, well, this room looking very nice. And you look at the paint and you realize that the surface seems to be
It's
prepared
smooth.
properly and the paint. And you go in the next room, similar house, similar paint, and you have a different take on that. Only because the person who did that exercise down the road is a person who prepared the surface properly and was able to use the proper type of paint and primers, because there are different types of primers too. So remember that, so that you know, when you use it, you'll find the quality and the finish of, because really actually painting really has to do with finish. It's a finished product, right? And you want to make sure your finished product, as everything else, stands out good, because that is what also represents the surface that people will be looking at and say, well, yeah, this looking good, that looking good. So there's a visual expression that you need to accentuate, and really, and so the paint does that.
And maintain the value of the quality too.
Yeah, quality painting does that.
Does the paint
It's
also
very
protect
visual,
the masonry? Apart from the visual, is there also a functional, whether it waterproof, so coats or protects or helps to maintain the integrity of the masonry on the wall?
Because the surface has to be managed properly and prepared properly. So by the time you put the paint on it, it brings out exactly what it is you want. But if it is the surface has a lot of lines, have a lot of stuff like that, and it's not plastered properly, and then you have a situation where in the business that you have experience in, sometimes they say 60 or 70% of what you pay for is what is presented to you in terms of what you see, the box, the packaging itself. Well, that's what painting is. Painting represents packaging. What you actually see is the finished product. What you see, what is inside. It represents just about, well, let's say about 30%, but 70% of what you see outside. And really, actually, that's like a product. You know, you see, you pay more for the packaging itself than what is inside the package.
Yeah.
That's correct. And painting has to be seen in that particular light, and that is how it is presented. That is why you need to pay attention to that part of the job as well, because that in itself brings out whatever design of your home that you have. It really brings it out, because when you see a property is painted properly, and you look at it and you see the quality of paint and you see the riches, or you actually can see it, because to the normal eye, you could pick it up and you see how the wall surfaces are. You could actually see it makes a difference between that and just another house that was painted.
Andrew, you're so correct. Huh? I have seen my own situation, the difference when the wall was properly prepared and they used the primer and everything, as against in certain rooms when they just went and just kind of say, okay, just paint it like that. There is a difference. And let me say also, you may think, and I'm saying you, but we may think that we're saving money by saying, let us do it ourselves or get some friend to come and help. When you do it that way, you have to, maybe in the next year or two, you have to paint. When you get a proper paint job done, it could last maybe 5 years without, you could just wipe out, depending on the paint you use, you just have to wipe the walls and it remain nice and clean. So we really should be very careful thinking that we're saving costs up front by either getting a painter who is really not a painter, but somebody who feels they could paint, as against a professional painter. I have experienced the difference, and I would say if I have a choice, definitely you're not getting me to do any ratch painting. Seriously, I prefer save and pay that money with a professional painter up front, knowing that not until maybe next 5 years, especially the outside of the house too.
It saves you a lot of money. It saves you a lot of money.
Yeah. Andrew Nunez, we have gone through the whole house. I cannot express enough thanks to you, because it is so seldom that you can get someone to sit down and tell you, look, this is what you have to do if you want to keep this thing going. And as you said, if we make a checklist Well, Jennifer, perhaps we should develop a checklist based on these two shows to say.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay,
yes, it's important. It's good to give people that too as well, because people sometimes don't.
Would love
would-
to have,
would
no,
need
that's
sometimes that to
important. I
yeah, to
see
keep
it as
them, yeah, to keep them
important
talking.
and really, yeah.
yeah,
Very important.
because and you just space it out. You space it out to suit your budget, but it certainly is worth your while. Do it properly. Do it less
Yeah. Yes.
frequently, but do it properly. And if you rotate every year, have a mini project to do something, then over probably an 8-year period, you fix the whole house every 8 years.
You could budget for it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You budget for it.
Exactly.
You know? So
Exactly.
we want to sincerely thank you, Andrew. This is invaluable.
welcome.
Invaluable.
Yes. Most welcome. Most
You know, Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, I have some notes. I have one to make sure that I look at the cleaning of my tank and buying buying that filter.
and take your
I
pictures too as well.
appreciate what you said about, and I'm pulling from what, for me personally, and I know for our audience, they'll pull a lot too from what you have said. That drainage had me very, very concerned, and still have me concerned. I know now when I call the plumber, but I don't think the plumber is not the person who I need to chat with on this.
External works.
Yeah, and I
External
understand what you're talking about, the difference with the surface drain, which is really running out to the road, to the main drain.
Yeah.
And lots of information you gave. It is so key, and Terrian also said it before. Whether you own your home or you renting, this is important, you know, so you would know, don't feel because it's not your home, you could use a very cheap paint and get away with it. You're living in the property, so you want to ensure that it's done properly. It tip in terms of you being aware, you may not have the house rented, but you're talking about the extra air conditioning units, etc., because of the heat. And there's so many takeaways, Andrew, that yes, Terry, we may have to put together a booklet or something.
But I think
it was tremendous value, definitely tremendous value to our audience, you know, not just the 5.8G, this is for everybody outside there, you know, to know of,
But Andrew, one major takeaway, I mean, one of the things that I had mentioned to you is that, you know, as we get into this stage, you have your network of people who, you have your go-to person and so on.
Yeah.
And this is a web of people, this is a web. But it seems to me that we need to have a general contractor. Is that the resource that we need to be close to? Someone who could keep us in the know, keep us in the loop, and even if he can't do the thing, he knows somebody who could, because from what I see, I need a roofer, I need a plumber, I need an electrician, I need a external works person. You know, a painter.
Well, it's important if you could channel all of that information to one person, and that one person could actually do the recommendation and coordination of work. Because sometimes it might be simply that even though he's a general contractor, and you might be a client who something small you want, he could still his plumber, his electrician, he could communicate that person and say, look, I want you for you to go up by Terry and you want to attend to something. So what you're doing all the time is really every time you need something, you call that person, and that person communicate with his resource personnel or his resource men, as he calls, and service specialists, and he send them to you, because it may not be a big job for him as an individual contractor to deal with, but some of his personnel that he actually work with and who he trusts and have confidence in and probably of a certain quality, he could tell, okay, I'll send up so and so, let him look at it and let him organize and give that course. I will be calculated, make sure the cost is correct, and kind of work it through that system, because it's something like what we do in our business, because a lot of people sometimes call us, we're not contractors, but we consultants, but of
I
course
was
we know a
just
number
about
of
to ask you
trades
that
we
question.
ourselves use. So I would say, well, okay, I can have a plumber. Yeah, no, there are certain individuals that I use. I've been using them for years, and I've used for two reasons. One, I could close my house. I could give them my keys and tell them go and deal with that, and I go on someplace else. That's done. Keys come back. Nothing is touched. Nothing is interfered with. Our plumber, our electrician who does that to me, and I could give them that any time. I'm also a general contractor. I could leave that house just like that, leave it open, go in, do work, come back out there, and go on. But so far apart from the skill of the person, in this particular era that we live in, trustworthiness becomes also a prime important.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
These are individuals who I just mentioned there. I don't have to be home for them to go in there and do work for me.
Yeah.
They could go in down inside the bedroom here, master bedroom, go handle plumbing, come back out. I good to go, no problems whatsoever. And they've been with me for years. And so anytime I have people who are asking for somebody, sometimes I will recommend them. I recommend them for two reasons. The fact that they are good themselves, they are good tradesmen, but the trustworthiness, this particular area that we live in is important. That's when I'm telling these people, because I trust them to go in your space, don't interfere with anything, anybody, come back out there, no problem.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, I'm going to take some liberties here with your association with Connections 50 Plus, and the fact that Urbasys email and telephone number is going to be plastered all over the show. and to tell you that when our 50 Plus crew coming to you for advisory services, paid advisory services, Andrew get them with a 10% discount if they say Connections 50 Plus 5.8 GLI.
No problem at all. No problem.
Because I know Urbasys does this advisory work for persons and persons who want
that's just a part of our
service.
Part of our business as well, and that's how we deal with things. That's okay for us. We do that.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, and Jennifer.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, all the best.
All right, Andrew. Bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah.
+50 Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.